No, already have. Okay, and share the screen.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji,
Hare Krishna.
Mahajan Das Devi Asi.
Oh, Mahajan Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. Sudevi Mataji, Hare Krishna. Welcome back.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, so most of you probably know the invocation prayers, but I'm going to put it on the screen anyway. Can you see the prayers on the screen? Somebody say yes, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. So we'll get started. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyadesh Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktovrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Vancha kalpatarubhyascha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnaverbhyo namo namaha. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Once again, welcome everyone. And so what we will do now is, excuse me, is talk about some of the norms that we're going to use for this series of classes. And the first norm is punctuality. So I'm glad many of you were able to sign on even a few minutes before, and most of you made it within 2 or 3 minutes of 8 o'clock. So I really appreciate that, and I request that we maintain that punctuality. Similarly, we'll try to finish by 9:30. Every once in a while, we might go a few minutes longer, but anybody who needs to leave at, again, I'm talking about Toronto time, 9:30, 6:30 Vancouver time. Anybody who wishes to leave at that time, you're welcome to do so. You will not offend anybody because that's the advertised time, and we try to keep to that. Also want to mention that people in India, there are some people from India also. Today, your start time was 5:30 in the morning. But next week, because we changed clocks here, it would actually be 6:30 in the morning for you. So, you get an extra hour to do whatever you like. And, but regardless, we are going to try and keep to punctuality. The second point is that you all, excuse me, you've all made a commitment to 30 weeks. No, I'm sorry. Many of you have made the commitment 30 weeks. Some of you are here for the first 4 weeks to hear the pastimes. So please stick to your commitments. Another one is that we'll maintain respect for each other. What that means is that this is a very open and friendly environment. We're not to judge anyone, and we encourage discussion and questions. Nobody should feel embarrassed to ask a question. Nobody should consider a question to be a dumb question. And there's a cliche that I really like actually. It says, there are no dumb questions, there are only dumb answers. So I know it's a very old, worn out cliche, but I wanted to mention that if anybody feels somebody is saying something dumb, it can only be pointed towards me. There is no dumb question. So please feel free. And once again, we respect every one of you, and we expect you to respect every one of us. If you have cell phones, please keep them on vibrate. And put yourself on mute unless you need to speak. But I would really like if you keep the video on. Obviously, I'm not going to force anyone, but I'd really like that if you do. And we'll discuss that later on, why I'm considering that to be so important. I mentioned in my email also that I'm not going to get into any deep philosophy. We'll stay basically at a bird's eye view level to try to understand what Bhagavatam is about. Some philosophy, of course, but not a lot, or certainly not in detail, and a lot of pastimes, so that by the end of it, you have a good feel for what is Srimad Bhagavatam about, and some of its main characters that are discussed or described in this book. If you need to reach me, you all have my email. My phone number is, if you want to write it down, 416-524-4493. And I'll repeat that, 416-524, excuse me, 4493. Okay. Any questions or comments before I get into the glories of Kartik Maas, which is the month that, again, as I said, starts tomorrow?
Hi, I have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead, Radhika.
When we get into the Srimad Bhagavatam, as you said, you'll be providing, you'll be going through the main pastime. Is there maybe not really a syllabus, but like ahead of time, do you know which cantos you plan to cover during which weeks? If someone
Yes.
wanted to read
Yes.
along.
So actually, thank you for asking that question, because it also reminds me to tell you that if anyone of you is interested in actually acquiring a set of Srimad Bhagavatam, let me know, and I can help you get it. Certainly, if you are in Vancouver, Nandimukhi is your contact. I think every one of you knows Nandimukhi because you have been referred to this program by her, and she can arrange to get a set for you. If you're in the Greater Toronto area and if you need one, contact me and I can get you one. If you're in any other city, feel free to contact your local temple and they'll be more than happy to even deliver a set for you. For those of you who want to refer to it but don't wish to purchase one, you can always go into internet and it's all there. So you get into the database and refer to whatever it is that you wish to see. Okay, and so what I will do is, after the 4 weeks, first week will be the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. Second week would be the Advent of Srimad Bhagavatam. And after that, we'll take one canto at a time. So it will go in series. We will not jump up and around. And we'll try to do as many pastimes as possible. But again, I'm really glad you asked this question, because it gives me an opportunity to also ask one more question of you. And that is, I have two options. I can very quickly skim through even the skimming that I'm doing and cover the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, or cover whatever we cover, at least in some detail. But that may mean that at the end of 26 weeks of Bhagavatam, we may be only partially done. So do you have a preference? Are you in a hurry to finish because, hey, already 30 weeks is long enough time? Or you feel that whatever we cover, we should cover in reasonable detail so we have a good understanding of what happened there? Any comments, any preferences?
As per me, Prabhu, it should be in detail, because having half knowledge or knowing it in a quick way, then going it in a long way and going in detail is more better for me to know. Because when we got this opportunity, we don't want to lose this. We want to know as much as I want. So for me and maybe.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I agree to Mataji.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I also would appreciate more detail.
Okay, all right. So good enough. I mean, unless somebody has a contrary view, please speak up.
Prabhuji, I thought like we will get a glimpse of the like all the chapters or like what is there in Srimad Bhagavatam if we skim through all the chapters.
Sorry, say again, Prabhu.
Like I mean, I would like to have that second option. Is
Yeah.
like if like it is my preference, but anything is okay for me. I was just thinking like since this is the only opportunity, I thought we should get to know at least some things in all the chapters. So I don't want to lose other stuffs.
Yeah.
Like yeah, that is the contradictory view that I have, but I'm okay with anything.
So understand one thing, that even if I skim through every chapter, you're looking at a year, if not more. So that's the challenge I have. I mean, to me, it doesn't matter. I can do whichever way you like, but it's a matter of whether you, all of you, that means, are able to make that kind of commitment that for a year or longer, you can come every week for an hour and a half. So that's basically the challenge. So whatever you like is okay with me. Okay, and you don't have to answer today. I mean, let's carry on. I mean, we actually have 4 more weeks before we start Bhagavatam. Although everything I'll talk about today and the next 4 weeks is still from Bhagavatam. It's just that it's only for one particular month, the pastimes in that particular month. So we can discuss it later also and see what the opinions are. Okay. All right. Okay, let's move on. So as I was mentioning, the Kartik Maas starts tomorrow, and it's probably the most glorious month of the year. And just in case you're wondering what decides, which month is the most glorious one, or anything, place, what's the most glorious place, etc., etc. So our acharyas, Vaishnava acharyas, they define, I would say, they measure the glories of a month or a place by the glories of the pastimes enacted in a particular place or at a particular time. So Kartik is most glorious because of the most wonderful pastimes that occurred in this month. And we already discussed that Raas dance happened, appearance of Radha Kund, Shyam Kund happened, Govardhan Lila happened, Damodar Lila happened, Gopashtami. Oh yeah, Tulsi Vivaah we didn't mention. Tulsi Vivaah happened. And Diwali, Dhanteras, etc. We talked about that. So some of these wonderful, wonderful pastimes happened in this month, and that's why this is so glorious. By the way, this is also called Radharani's month. So actually, Kartik, some said Kartik actually means Radharani. And there are other our acharyas like Rupa Goswami. They have described the observance of Kartik month as one of the 64 items of devotional service that he discusses in great detail in his book, very famous book, Nectar of Devotion. And he quotes from Padma Purana that just as Lord Damodar, which is Lord Krishna, is favorably inclined toward his devotees, so the month of Kartik, which is also so dear to Krishna, bestows great favor upon his devotees, even for a little service that we do. It is said that for a very small performance of devotional service in this month of Kartik, one gets a very big result, because the results of any devotional service in this month are magnified 1,000 times. So you chant Hare Krishna once, it's like you've chanted 1,000. You do one round, it's like you've done 1,000 rounds. You chant 16 rounds, you do 16,000 rounds. That's how effective this month is. And that's why we'll talk later on that a lot of devotees increase their services in this month. Chanting rounds is one, or reading more scriptures, or reciting more prayers, or distributing more books, or making any special offerings, etc. They do that, and by the same token, they reduce their sense gratification in this month, or they may actually do some extra austerities. For example, some devotees I know, they eat only once a day in this month, or some devotees will eat only Ekadashi food, Ekadashi Prasadam on this day. Some devotees give up sweets, or they rise earlier than usual. I mean, the point is they do something special, both in terms of extra service and in terms of extra austerity. And therefore, they get a special mercy of Krishna in this month. And also say help from Krishna to let them, or to help them fulfill their vows and to improve their spiritual practices. So very, very glorious, I should say, glorious month. And we should seriously consider increasing our spiritual practices and reducing our self-gratificatory activities, and taking any extra vows or austerities that we can do. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of time also to describe the glories of this month as mentioned in the Puranas. So Skanda Purana, I'm sure you have heard this name. Skanda Purana says that just like Satyuga is the best of all the ages, just like the Vedas are the best among all the scriptures, just like Ganga is the best among all the rivers, so Kartik is the best of the months, simply because it's most dear to Lord Krishna. And it goes on to say that if somebody performs even a little worship to the Lord in this month, then the Lord offers his own abode to that devotee. Obviously, it means serve from the heart, but that's what Lord does. We all know that we offer lamp in this month. And it says that if anybody offers a lamp to the Lord, even for a short time in this month, then whatever sins they have acquired for millions of years, maybe billions of years, they all destroy just from offering that lamp to the Lord. Obviously, that means that of all the gifts you can think of giving the Lord in this month, offering of the lamp is the best gift. Nothing equals that. There's another place which says anybody who eats only once a day in this entire month becomes very famous, powerful, and heroic. And anybody who reads Bhagavad Gita in this month, he does not return to the world, to this material world, where we have repeated birth and death. So many devotees would read actually chapter 12. Chapter 12 of Bhagavad Gita, which is devotional service. Short, it's like 20 verses. And actually, if you just read the verses, it's about 5 minutes. If you read the verses and the translation, it's 10 minutes. So 10 minutes a day devoted, and so much benefit of not ever having to return back to this material world.
Chapter 12, 20 minutes.
Sorry? Similarly, it says that whatever pious results we can get from bathing in all the holy rivers and all the holy places and giving all sorts of charities, they don't even equal 1/10,000,000th of the results obtained by following the vow of this month, Kartik. Padma Purana also says that anybody who bathes early in the morning in this month, before sunrise, he gets the pious results of bathing in all places of pilgrimage and is absolved of all sins. And then it also says that if somebody is not able to do it for the entire month, just do it for the last 3 days of this month. Last 5 days of this month are known as Bhishma Panchami, Bhishma Panchak, and very important, but it's talking about the last 3 days. If you can just rise before sunrise and take bath, the last 3 days, we get the benefit of having bathed in all places of pilgrimage and holy rivers, and we get rid of all our sins. Some of the activities that are recommended for this month, you can guess that. Japa, which is chanting of the holy names. Worship the Lord by offering the ghee lamps, and the regular arti, paraphernalia. Worshipping Tulsi Maharani, very, very important. Performing austerities and giving in charities. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second. See if there are any questions, comments before I start talking about the pastime of Raas Lila. Anything?
Prabhuji, when we talk about reading Bhagavad Gita, can we read only the translations as well?
You can, yeah, you can.
Okay.
That saves you another 5 minutes.
Not the 5 minutes. I'm poor with Sanskrit. That's why.
Oh, that's okay. No, I was just joking, but that's okay. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. So if there are no questions, then I'll move on. Okay. All right. So we will, as I was mentioning before, it happened basically tomorrow. And it's known as Raas Lila. Maha means great, as you know, or grand. But before I talk about that, I'll be honest with you, I was first hesitating starting this program with this particular pastime, because this is the one pastime that's most misunderstood. And I was concerned about that. But then I looked at I should look at the list of all the attendees, and you are all devotees. You are already convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And I think you're all convinced that the Raas Lila is not a mundane, material dance that we sometimes see at the clubs in downtown, whatever city we're living in. So therefore I said, okay, I'm comfortable doing this. As you know, Krishna is also known as Gopi Jan Vallabha. Anybody knows what that means, Gopi Jan Vallabha?
Preeti to all gopikas.
Say again, please.
Like beloved to all gopikas.
Yes. So he's loved by all the gopis. He's also known as Gopi Kanta or Radha Kanta, which means, again, a lover, person who the gopis and Radharani loves and who loves them back. He's also known as the enjoyer of the gopis, which all relate to the activity we're going to talk about. But before we do that, I would also like to remind everyone, including myself, that one of his other names is Giridhari. What does this mean? Giridhari or Girivardhari? What does that mean? Sorry, speak louder, please.
The one who lifted Govardhan.
Correct. The one who lifted the hill Govardhan. So the point being, he lifted, when he was, how old was he when he lifted the Govardhan hill? 7 years. He was 7 years old. And he did the Raas Lila 1 year later, which means he was 8 years old. So at the age of 7, he lifted the whole hill. And that hill that most of us have seen was much bigger at that time. It has a curse upon it that it loses its size by the size of a mustard seed every year. So in 5,000 years, it has lost quite a bit. So it was even bigger then, and he lifted it. And how? On his left hand, and the smallest finger on his left hand, which is probably the weakest finger he has. And he lifted it. So anybody who's thinking that I should do the same thing that he did, then the advice is given that, okay, first you go to Vrindavan and lift that hill on the smallest finger of your left hand, and then you can come back and have your Raas Lila. If you cannot do that, lifting up the hill, then you cannot do Raas Lila either. Then it's considered abominable and not approved, not authorized. Okay? So that's the whole point, that Krishna did that because his supreme personality of Godhead. Everybody belongs to him already, and there is no mundane sex involved in this particular activity. Okay, so we must understand this point very, very well, that Krishna is God, his supreme absolute truth, which means he's absolutely perfectly pure. There's no contamination, there's no material contamination in his consciousness. So therefore, the pastime that we're going to discuss is actually a divine pastime, because neither the gopis nor Krishna had the material consciousness that we do. And therefore, this whole pastime is actually very holy, very sacred, and very pure. And as I said, it's between the Lord and the purest of his devotees, purest of his yogis, known as gopis. Gopis are eternally liberated, pure devotees who have come from Goloka Vrindavan with Lord Krishna. I should say most of them have come with Krishna from Goloka. There are other gopis that we talk about, other types of gopis, but majority of them are eternal associates of Krishna, and they have come with him from Goloka Vrindavan. And the whole purpose of their coming here is to assist Lord Krishna in his divine Leela, divine pastimes. They are completely purified in their consciousness. They're completely detached from all and any material desires. And the love of Krishna is already awakened in their hearts. They're not like us, that we're trying to revive it. It's already awakened. And Krishna knows it, and they know it. They're not ordinary women. They have no desire for self gratification. And they have only one desire. Can anybody guess what the desire is? The only desire in the heart of the gopis is to
Love to
Serve Krishna.
serve Krishna, to love Krishna, to please Krishna. And Krishna has, the greatest desire of Krishna is to love gopis, please gopis. So this is the mutual reciprocation of the divine relationship between the gopis and the Lord. Shukadeva Goswami, in describing this pastime, he explains that anyone who enjoys reading or hearing this Leela, by the way, I hope everybody knows Leela means pastime. So anybody who enjoys reading or hearing this Leela, thinking that this is a Leela about some nice ordinary boy named Krishna dancing with these gopis, is simply drinking poison. So Sukadeva Goswami is saying, if you have that mindset, you're in trouble. This poison will kill their spiritual inclination, if any. And therefore, he says, this is a very exalted subject matter. And he instructs and cautions everyone to please hear it in the mood that this is a divine pastime between the purest of the pure, Lord Krishna, the supreme absolute truth, and the purest of the pure devotees, the gopis who have not an iota of material sex desire in their hearts. And we should all hear this pastime in that mood. Are you all with me, or any concerns or questions coming to your mind?
Yeah, Prabhu, what's like gopis are also devotees?
Gopis are the purest of the devotees. We are all, Lord Chaitanya said, follow in their footsteps. There is no bigger devotee than the gopis.
Why only gopis, not gopi, like men?
Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't understand your question. Yes, gopis, gopas, all the residents of Vrindavan were there with Krishna at that time. They're all pure devotees.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. I misunderstood the question.
No. My questions were two.
Okay, all right. Okay,
Thank you.
sure. Any other question?
The gopis as wives too, or are his wives different?
I'm sorry.
Gopis as wives too, or
Okay,
are
so
his wives different?
okay, sorry. I would really beg you to please turn your video on if possible when you ask a question. It's very uncomfortable for me to hear a voice with no face. I'm very sorry, but please, if you don't mind. Oh, thank you. Draupadi Mataji ki jai.
Yeah, Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Correct.
Are the gopis his wives, or are the wives different than the gopis?
So if you're talking about the wives in the in Dwarka, they're obviously different. Now, the reason I answer it this way is that all the real gopis, there's a whole pastime where he marries all of them at the same time. He also marries Radharani when they were only 2.5 years old. Actually, sorry, less than that. And so, yes, they're all married to him, but not in the pastime. In the pastime, the Yogamaya, which is the form of Purnamasi, a personality present in that pastime, she creates Maya gopis, which means the fake gopis. And they get married to other men who are also expansions of Krishna, by the way. So it's really fun. So basically, they're all married to Krishna. They all belong to Krishna. They're all part and parcel of Krishna. So there is no such thing as somebody else's wife. That concept doesn't exist. But it's pretended to be like that to increase the mood of love. It's like going after something that's prohibited, so you want it more. The intensity is greater. That's the only reason. Otherwise, everybody belongs to Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Any other question?
Prabhuji, can you please talk about the marriage aspect? You said at the age of 2.5, like he got married to all the gopis. I actually want to know.
Not all the gopis.
Radharani.
Radharani. Okay, so I'll do it very quickly because otherwise we'll run out of time. So essentially, actually, they were probably only a few months old. I don't remember exactly, but they were less than 1 year old. So Vrishabhanu, who was Vrishabhanu?
Yeah.
Radharani's father.
Yes, Radharani's father. And Nanda Maharaj, who was obviously Krishna's father, they once went to one of the 12 forests called Bhandirvan. This happened that they both got there at the same time. They were very close friends. So Vrishabhanu had Radharani in his lap, and Nanda Maharaj had Krishna in his lap. And they met and say, however they greet themselves. So they started talking. And because the kids were kind of restless in their lap, they put them down and got busy talking. So Krishna and Radha looked at each other and they made a, eye signal, I guess, and they wandered off to a different corner of the forest, Bhandirvan. There, they took the form of 16-year-olds and they called Lord Brahma. He came. They said, we would like you to perform a marriage ceremony. So he got them both married at that time, and then he left. And after some time, they went back to their, few months old form and crawled back to their respective father, and then they went home. So that was the marriage ceremony of Radharani and Krishna when they were few months old. Okay, and then other ceremony takes place just before Krishna wraps up his pastime. He gets married to each and every. There were millions of them, by the way. At the same time, with millions of barat. You know what barat is? Marriage party happening at the same time. Same people were there in each and every one of them, but thinking they were in separate weddings. So it all happened at the same time. Okay. All right.
That's really amazing.
I'm sorry.
That's really amazing.
Yeah. It's a wonderful pastime. One day I'll tell you in great detail. Okay. So as I was mentioning, it starts tomorrow. It's known as Sharat Purnima. Sharat means autumn. Purnima means full moon. So this is the full moon night of the autumn season. That's tomorrow. And this is the night when Krishna played his flute, his transcendental flute, in a place called Vanshi Vat. Vat means a banyan tree, by the way. Vanshi means flute. So the banyan tree under which Krishna played his flute for this particular pastime has now become famous as Vanshi Vat. It's by the Yamuna River in Vrindavan. I'm sure some of you have been there. And basically, by playing that flute, he called the gopis to dance with him. By the way, do you know what time it was? Anybody knows what time it was?
Midnight.
Midnight.
Yes, yes, midnight. So at midnight. Now, we can say that, look, he kind of figuratively played his flute to invite the gopis to come and dance with him. But actually, Krishna's flute is what is now in the modern day and age known as the cell phone. That was Krishna's cell phone. And he could use the flute to send personal messages to each and every one of the gopis. So on this night, he plays what's known as the fifth note, which is meant to arouse, I should say, lusty feelings in the heart of people. And all the gopis heard that. But they didn't just hear the beautiful melodious sound of this flute, but they actually received a personal message from Krishna saying, I want to see you now. They actually heard their name and they heard Krishna calling them as if he sent them a WhatsApp text. I'm here, show up. And because the gopis' desire was to simply please Krishna, simply to fulfill all his desires and make him happy, all of them. And Srimad Bhagavatam described how many were there. Anybody knows how many gopis were there?
4.5 billion.
4.5 million.
4.5 million?
Million.
Who said 3 billion?
3 billions.
Oh, there you go. Yes, Aditi Mataji, right. 3 billion gopis. They all received personal messages and they all showed up. And the only desire they had at that time when they heard this message was, how do I fulfill Krishna's desire to dance with me? And that desire of Krishna aroused the desire in their hearts so intensely, so strongly, that they left whatever they were doing. Somebody was cooking dal on the stove, or boiling milk on the stove, or making chapatis on the stove, and they just left it. Let it burn, let it boil over, didn't matter, they just left it. Somebody was massaging their mother-in-law's feet. Somebody was lying down with their husband, talking about whatever they were talking about. Somebody was actually feeding their kids. Somebody was milking cows. It didn't matter what they were doing. They didn't care. They just got up and left. They didn't care what their husband said. They didn't care what their mother-in-law, father-in-law would say. They didn't care what their family would say. They didn't care that people may criticize them for seeing another male person in the middle of the night. They didn't care that people will say, you are an unchaste woman. They just knew that my Krishna wants to see me. My Krishna wants to enjoy a dance with me. Nothing is more important. Most of you heard this particular verse in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadharmana Parityajya. What's the next line?
Mamekam Sharanam.
Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. Yes, which says that give up all other varieties of religion. Just surrender to me. And that's what gopis were doing. They were willing to sacrifice anything and everything and do anything to please Krishna, because Krishna's pleasure is all that mattered to them. Nothing else mattered. So actually, Some of the gopis, they got caught, I should say stopped by their husbands or their family members, and they were forced to stay back. They were not allowed to leave. So what did they do? They actually gave up their body. They gave up their body and joined Krishna in their spiritual bodies. This is how important it was for Krishna, also for them. Because my Krishna, and my was a key word, my Krishna wants to dance with me. He wants to have some pleasure. Now, guess what happened? When they arrived at Banshiva, where Krishna was standing, playing his flute with the sweetest and the naughtiest smile on his face. And guess what he said to them? If you don't already know that, you'll be shocked.
Go
said,
back.
Yeah, exactly. He said, my dear gopis, it's so nice of you to come here and meet me here in the middle of the night. But you know, this is a dangerous place. You're all very young girls. You have no power to protect yourself. There are hungry lions and tigers and wolves and jackals all around this forest. And they're simply waiting to get some nice, young, juicy flesh. And here you are presenting yourself. So please go home immediately. Go home immediately. And then he said, what are you doing here anyways? It's not appropriate for a chaste lady to leave her home in the middle of the night and come to this dense forest to see another man. So please go back. He actually asked them to go back. Can you believe that? Well, the gopis couldn't believe that. And they began to cry. And they looked to the ground like the shy village girls. Now, I don't know how many of you know this, but when I was a young boy, one of the things that girls did when they felt shy, they would look down on the ground and with their toe, they'll start to make, some numbers or figures or scratch the ground, drawing pictures or whatever. Anybody had that experience, by the way? No? Okay. No, of course, Radhika, you won't. You're too young and too westernized for that.
Different generation, much younger than yours.
Okay. All right. Okay, different variation. I'll find out that later. Okay, anyway, so they started to do that. And then they looked up towards Krishna and they replied, Krishna, your words hit our hearts like arrows. You said that we should be attached to our family members, but why should we be attached to our family members? Who are our family members? The fact is, my dear Krishna, that you are the only object of our love. You are the husband of all living beings, and all living beings are your wives. You are the only Purusha, the enjoyer, and everyone else is Prakriti, the female. Even those of us who have male bodies, we have Prakriti, the female, to be enjoyed. And they said, they are all meant for your enjoyment. You're the supreme father, you're the supreme husband, you're the supreme protector, you're the supreme object of everyone's love. So Krishna, we're not doing anything wrong coming to you. And by the way, just like when you water the root of a tree, every part of that tree is nourished. Everyone, including all our family members, being your parts and parcels, will be happy and satisfied if you are happy and satisfied with what we are doing for you. So basically, they were telling Krishna to stop teaching them. Don't preach to us. We know what we're doing. And then they added our obligations to the society, the ancestors, the family members, the demigods, and anyone else and everyone else is satisfied if we fulfill our obligations to you. And that's a big lesson for us. And then the gopis gave their final verdict. Final verdict. They said, Krishna, we have left our homes, our family, our husbands for you, and we're not going back. Whoa. Now it's time for Krishna to be shocked. And basically they're saying, okay, Krishna, it's your move now. What are you going to do? You have been challenged. Well, when Krishna kind of recovered from his shock, and he saw how deeply and how sincerely the gopis wanted to please him and serve him and give him pleasure, his heart just melted. Just melted. Krishna, that supreme controller, was now being fully controlled by the love of his devotees. By the way, that's not surprising because that is his own nature. Krishna is by nature subordinate to the love of his devotees. And there are so many pastimes along those lines. Gopis, of course, they're the topmost devotees. They were happy to give up all their comforts and all their enjoyments of life just for the pleasure of Krishna. They were happy to put aside all attachments of personal relationships for the pleasure of Krishna. They gave up their pride and their prestige of being chaste women for the pleasure of Krishna. You know, it may sound like fine, but when you think about this, there's nothing more difficult than what they did, especially 5,000 years ago. Because today is also true, but 5,000 years ago, it was even more true that a cultured lady in a civilized society would consider nothing more precious and valuable than her chastity. For a woman to lose her chastity is unimaginable. But for Krishna's sake, and for the pleasure of Krishna, the gopis were willing to be considered by their own loved ones, and by the whole society for that matter, to be like a prostitute, unchaste woman. They didn't care. They didn't care what anybody says or thinks or does. If this is what it takes to please Krishna, they're more than happy to do it. No other consideration. So obviously, Krishna is very, very satisfied by this great demonstration of devotion. So he said, okay, let's have some fun. And all 3 billion of them, 3 billion and now 1, Krishna, began to roam around through the forest. And Krishna decided that he's going to have a mega dancing session, which is the Raas Lila. Well, then something more interesting happened. We are all used to instantaneous communication. You know, with all the technology we have, the internet and fast communication satellites and all those kind of things, this instantaneous communication these days. But in those days, it was even faster. So guess who heard that the dance was going to happen? Well, Narad Muni heard it. Lord Shiva heard it. Even Mother Lakshmi heard it. Mother Lakshmi is the eternal consort of Lord Narayan. And they all showed up to the place where the Raas Lila was going to happen. But then for them, things got very interesting. Very, very interesting. So what happened? Well, so they agreed on the place, they being Krishna and the gopis, agreed on the place by the banks of river Yamuna where they were going to dance. And excuse me. And one of the 8 Sakhis of Radharani, her name is Lalita. She's the controller type. She stood guard at the entrance of that place to make sure that only the authorized gopis are coming in. But then Lord Shiva showed up. And he saw Lalita. I said, Mataji, I'm here. I'm Lord Shiva, and I would like to participate. Well, Lalita is not afraid of anybody. She said, no, you don't. This again shocked Lord Shiva that somebody saying no to me. So he kind of stammered. He said, oh, what do you mean? And Lalita said, only females are allowed in this dance. So if you want to participate, you become a woman. And Lord Shiva said, I want to participate so badly. I'm willing to do that. Please tell me, how do I do that? So Lalita pointed to a kunda, which is a pond by the name of Man Sarovar. It's not too far from Manshiva, where the dance was going to happen. She said, you go take a dip in that pond, Man Sarovar Kund, and you'll come back a woman. So Lord Shiva said, okay, great. So he went, took a dip, and he transformed himself into a charming gopi, who's now known as, anybody knows?
Gopeshwar.
Gopishwar.
Gopeshwar Mahadev.
Gopishwar Mahadev.
Yes.
And then Yamuna ji decorated him even further, so he became a really beautiful gopi. So now Lord Shiva was happy, he's smiling, he enters the place where the Raas Lila is going to happen. He joined the other gopis. And Krishna saw Lord Shiva, and so he was in the form of a gopi now, but of course Krishna recognized him. So he smiled at him or her and walked towards her and started talking with big smile on his face. And Radharani said, oh, hold on, what's going on here? And then suddenly Krishna held Lord Shiva's hand, so Gopishwar, the lady's hand, and welcomed Lord Shiva with great respect. But all Radharani saw was big smiling and he holding her hand. So she went running to that place and said, hey, Krishna, what's going on? And Krishna said, Radha, don't worry. This is actually Lord Shiva. He's taken the form of a gopi just to be able to participate and observe or watch this dance. So don't worry. So Radharani then offered her respects and then they moved on. Well, a little while later, Narad Muni showed up. So he was given the same message. You need to become a woman before you can go. And he was pointed to a pond called Kusum Sarovar. And so go take a bath in that and you look at a female body. So he went and took a bath in Kusum Sarovar, came out, Narad Muni in the form of a woman. And then he was allowed to enter the place of the Raas Lila. And then soon enough, Mother Lakshmi showed up. My big smile on her face that I'm going to see. And, and she had seen that Narad and Shiva were stopped. And because they were not in a woman's body, they said, I'm in a woman's body, beautiful woman's body. So she showed up. And then Lalita said, you can't go in. And Lakshmi was shocked. She said, what do you mean? Don't you know who I am? And Lalita said, I know very well who you are, but you can't go in. And she said, why? She said, only people who have surrendered themselves to the gopis and have served them like menial service, they can go in. You have not done any such service. So go serve the gopis first, and then you come back. And Mother Lakshmi said, what do you mean serve the gopis? They're just little cowherd girls. I'm Lakshmi, wife of Narayan. I cannot do that. They said, well, sorry, you can't participate. So she was not allowed. Mother Lakshmi was not allowed to enter that place where the Raas Lila was going on. So now she's off performing austerities for the last 5,000 years. There's a place, Belwan, I think, if I'm not mistaken, which is even today performing austerities to be allowed in the next Raas Lila. Anyway, so the dancing started. And as I said, there were 3 billion gopis and 1 Krishna. Not very good combination. So Krishna expanded himself. So now there was one Krishna between every two gopis. However, each gopi thought Krishna was dancing only with her. That Krishna is looking only at her. Krishna is smiling only at me. And this went on for a while. But after a little while, some of the gopis became a little puffed up, in that they thought they were so important and so special that Krishna was dancing only with them. Krishna was looking only at them. Krishna was only smiling at them. Well, and Krishna sensed that pride. And he said, I can't have my devotees become proud or puffed up. I can't see pride in the heart of my devotees. So despite the fact, get this, despite the fact that the gopis had already given up everything and they were dancing with Krishna only for Krishna's pleasure, Krishna disappeared. He disappeared from the sight. He only took Radharani with him. So the point being, Krishna cannot tolerate the pride even in the purest of his devotee's heart. That's the gopi's heart. Because when pride enters into our heart, Krishna just leaves. But there was another reason for their disappearance. And the reason was that, as I was mentioning at the start of this pastime, I mentioned that one type of the gopis are the eternal associates of the Lord who come with the Lord from Goloka Vrindavan. But there were other types of gopis also. Some of you may have heard that when Lord Ram in Treta Yuga, which was almost 2 million years before Lord Krishna appeared, he had been exiled to the forest for 14 years, and he was passing through a forest known as Dandakaranya. And there were many sages living there, pure sages. They saw Lord Ram. They were so attracted by him. They approached him and said, we would like to have conjugal relationship with you. Lord Ram said, I'm so sorry. In this particular incarnation, I've taken a vow of being a one-woman man. I'm already married to Sita, therefore I cannot have a relationship with anybody else. The sages were very disappointed and they said, please help us. And Lord Ram said, okay, in the age of Dwapar, towards the end of Dwapar, I will appear again as Krishna. And at that time, my mood will be different. So you will appear as the gopis in Vrindavan at that time, and then you can have the pleasure of dancing with me, etc. at that time. So those sages in the form of gopis were also present. There were some demigods present as gopis. And I don't know how many of you know that when we become pure devotee, like absolutely pure devotee, before we go to Goloka Vrindavan, we are given one more birth in a place, wherever that is, in whichever universe that is, where Krishna is having his pastimes. We appear there and we get trained by the gopis or the gopals in how to serve Krishna. And then after that birth, we are promoted to Goloka Vrindavan. So those devotees whose last birth it was to be in Vrindavan, to be trained by the gopis, were also there. Similarly, the Vedas personified were there. So point being, there were many different types of gopis. And so they all sensed that, wait a minute, this Radha and Krishna are not here anymore. I'm sorry, I should have added that. So knowing that these gopis or these types of gopis are there, Radharani said to Krishna, you know what, it's not the same. These other types of gopis are contaminating the environment. So I'm not enjoying it. So let's go away. So those were the two reasons. Radharani's complaint and Krishna sensing the pride. For those two reasons, Krishna and Radha disappeared from that place. Very soon, the gopis realized that, hey, Radha and Krishna are not here. And as soon as they realized, they became mad in separation. They were started to cry, "Where is our Lord?" And they started to search for Krishna through the entire forest, running here and there in all directions. But they couldn't find them. And they felt totally helpless. And in that helpless condition, in the intense separation from Krishna, they were nuts, they went crazy. And they started to approach all moving and non-moving beings in the forest. And they were begging, "Can you help us find Krishna, please?" They went to the trees, they went to the creepers, they went to the plants. And they said, "Have you seen our Krishna? Has he passed this way? Please, before we die from separation, give us some direction, some indication of where he's gone. Just tell us which way he's gone." But the trees and the creepers had nothing to say. They just stood silently. The gopis were pleading with them, but not getting any answer. So they said, "How can you be so cruel? Answer us. Mr. Darling, Krishna, please help me, help us." But no answer. So they moved on and they saw a deer. And they knew that deer is very dear to Krishna. And so they went to the deer and said, "You're so dear to Krishna. Have you seen him? Where has he gone? Please give us some indication which way he's gone." Because this fire of separation is just burning in our hearts. And if it is not quenched by the sight of Krishna soon, it will burn our life to ashes. We will just die. No answer. Then there are some monkeys and the peacocks. And they said the same thing. "You're so dear to Krishna. Have you seen him?" No answer. And they were going so crazy. They were approaching the sky, the stars, and the wind, and light, and anything. "Please, please, please tell us where our Krishna is. Where is that beautiful lifter of the Govardhan hill? Where is that killer of Aghasur? Where is that killer of Bakasur?" And in their madness, they were totally, completely, utterly immersed in the thoughts of Krishna. And so what did they do? And that's the difference. Here's the difference between a non-devotee and a pure devotee. A non-devotee gets angry and says, "If you don't care, I don't care," walks away. The pure devotees start to feel the love even more in the guise of separation. The intensity grows. This is why it said the mood of separation is higher than the mood of union. Vipralambha, the separation, is better than, what's the word? Sambhog, which is the union. So they started to enact all the pastimes that Krishna had by then. So in the 8 years, whatever pastime he had done. So for example, one gopi pretended that she was the Kaliya serpent. And another gopi got on top of her shoulders and started dancing on her head, pretending she was Krishna. Another gopi pretended she was Putana, and Krishna jumped on her. And she in the form of Krishna said, "You think you're come to kill me? But poisoning me from your breast, I'm going to kill you by sucking your breast, sucking your life out of you. And then I will promote you to mother's position." Another gopi pretended she was Trinavarta, the whirlwind demon. And another gopi came out, climbed her shoulders, and started to choke her neck and threw her to the ground. So like that, they were doing all these pastimes. They're just going mad, searching here and there and everywhere. Finally, they saw 2 sets of footprints. You can guess who they belong to. Anybody? Who did they belong to?
Radha and Krishna.
Yes, Radha and Krishna. So they looked at those footsteps and they started thinking, just see, he's gone with this other gopi. and left us alone. So let us follow these footsteps. We'll find them. So they start following the footsteps. But very soon, the two footsteps turned into one set of footsteps. That really bewildered them. So anyway, they followed the one and they were not getting anywhere. They kept going here and there. Finally, they got to a tree under which they saw somebody sitting from a distance. They went, thinking this person might know where Krishna is. But they got under the tree, they noticed it was Srimati Radharani herself. She was sitting there under that tree all by herself, tears just flowing from her eyes like the rivers of Yamuna and Ganga, and crying and crying and crying and crying and crying, just crying, where is my Shyam Sundar? Where is my Krishna? Who is the Lord of my life? So the gopis wondered what happened. So actually what happened was that Radharani and Krishna, only the two of them were together, and she was very happy. But after a little while, Radharani started thinking how special she was. That Krishna would take her only her, and wander around, leaving all the other 3 billion gopis behind. So she said, you know, Krishna, I'm a little tired now. Can you please carry me on your shoulders? What does Bhagavad Gita 15:15 says? Sarvasya chaham hri sannivishta. Krishna resides in the heart of everyone as Paramatma. So he knows what you're thinking, even Radharani. So he understood that she got a little bit of pride in her heart. So he looked at her, and again, the nice, bewitching, smile of Krishna. And with that smile, he said, yeah, please, I'll sit down, you climb over me. He sat down, and as soon as Radharani lifted one of her legs to climb over his shoulders, Krishna disappeared. He just disappeared. And so now Radharani was alone. She was crying. The other gopis began to cry when they understood what Radharani was going through. And actually, they understood that whatever they were feeling, in terms of lamentation, in terms of separation, pain, burning sensation, whatever, Radharani was feeling 1,000,000 times more. So they had a lot of compassion for Radharani. They were not getting mad at that. Look, you left us, see what happened. No, they were just feeling a lot of compassion for her. And that's the transcendental world, the spiritual world. Mindset is like that. Now, there's another story. It's a side story. And it's not in Srimad Bhagavatam. But let me share it with you anyway, because it shows the level of the love of Radharani, which is even higher than the gopis. So what happened was that as the gopis and Radharani was searching, at this time separately, for Krishna, Krishna hid himself behind a bush, anticipating that they will come this way. And as soon as he saw them coming that way, he transformed his beautiful Vrindavan Shyam Sundar form into Lord Narayan, the 400 Lord Narayan form. So gopis came near the bush and they saw him, but they saw Lord Narayan. So with great respect and reverence, they bowed down their heads to the feet of the Lord and asked him, have you seen Krishna, my dear Lord? We're looking for him. Please tell us where he's gone. You know everything. But Krishna, in the form of Lord Narayan, shook his head. No idea. As soon as he did that, they offered their obeisances again, turned around and left. I mean, they didn't care. They didn't care that this was Lord Narayan, the Lord of Vaikuntha. All they knew was that this is not my Krishna. This is not our Krishna. Well, soon after, Radharani came. And she also saw Krishna in his Narayan form. So she too very humbly bowed down and said, oh Lord Narayan, have you seen my Krishna? Where has he gone? Well, this is pure bhakti. Like gopis are pure bhakti, but this is purer bhakti if that's possible. Of Srimati Radharani. which totally controls Lord Krishna. So as hard as he tried, Krishna could not control himself and maintain his disguise. And he came, it's like literally his two arms fell off, just melted away. And he came back to his original form of Shamsundar. And Radha said, that's my Krishna. Anyway, the point of the story being that that Krishna cannot control himself in front of Radharani. Anyway, as I said, that's a side story. Anyway, so Radharani and gopis were talking, and they figured that the only way to make Krishna reappear is to sit one place and start singing his glories. So they went back to the banks of river Yamuna and started narrating all the pastimes of Krishna to each other. And then in great feelings of ecstasy, they started to sing the most beautiful, heartwarming, and touching set of songs, actually 19 verses, popularly known as, who knows? Known as Gopi Gita.
Gopi Gita.
Very good, excellent. Known as Gopi Gita. And the devotees now, we sing it every night during Kartik. And I'm sure almost all of you have heard it. And it starts with Jati Vedikam Janmana Vraja Shayata Indira Shashwatatrahi. Then goes on, 19 different verses. Beautiful. And if you've not heard this before, please do hear it. But don't blame me if it makes you cry. I cry every time I hear it. So when Krishna heard this song, he couldn't control himself. I simply appeared in front of him in his beautiful gold-colored clothes, a peacock feather in his crown, flute tucked into his back, in his waist, I should say, and a big, most mesmerizing smile on his face. When the gopis saw him, they felt their life had come back, that they could breathe again. But at the same time, they felt some transcendental anger in their heart because Krishna had abandoned them. They felt that after all, he had called them to him. They risked everything to go to him in the dead of the night, and then he left them. They really wanted Krishna to explain, why? Why did you do that? So in a most tactful and intelligent way, they asked Krishna, which of the three categories of lovers do you belong to? The first category is, I love you only if you love me. This is, no, this is the nature of a businessman. I'll do what you do for me. Reciprocation. You pay from one hand, I pay from the other one. The second category is, even if you don't love me, I love you. I said, no, that's nature of parents. That's not me. The third category is, even if you love me, I will not reciprocate. Basically, gopis wanted Krishna to admit that he was in the third category. I'm starting to hear some conversation going on the side. Have I gone on too long without pausing? I can pause, it's not a problem. Okay, all right. Okay, so Krishna said, no, I did not neglect you. I was not being indifferent to you. Actually, I was always thinking of you. But in order to increase your love for me, I hid myself from you. And Krishna gave the example of a poor man who gains a lot of wealth and then loses it. And he goes so crazy, anxious, he cannot think of anything else except the treasure he lost. What happened to my money? How do I get it back? Krishna said, similarly, I was reciprocating with you because your desire was to increase your love for me. And by hiding myself from you, I created a situation by which your attachment for me would increase. So actually, I was reciprocating with you. And then Krishna said something that shocked again all the gopis. He made an extraordinary confession. He said, actually, I am unable to repay my debt for your service to me, even with the prolonged life of Lord Brahma. By the way, Brahma lives for 311 trillion 40 billion Earth years. She says, even if I live that long, Krishna is saying, I cannot repay my debt for your service to me. Because you have given up everything for me. You have given up your family ties, which are so difficult to break. You have given up all the dictates of this world, of the Vedas, and of your relatives. You have forsaken everything for my sake, which I cannot do for you. You have given up all other relationships for me, but I cannot do that for you. I still have my father. I still have my mother. I still have my friends. You came running out of your house in the middle of the night. But you know what I have to do? I have to sneak out of my bedroom window. Because see, what used to happen was every night, Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj will insist on putting Krishna to bed. And they'll sing the lullabies or whatever. Only when it looked like Krishna was sleeping, they'll leave. And then Krishna snuck out. So I guess for all this time, Krishna never slept. For daytime, he'll be taking care of the cows and other pastimes. Night, he'll sneak out. He said, I have to sneak out and return in the morning so nobody catches me. He said, but you, the gopis, with complete abandon have come to meet me without any consideration of the consequences. I worried about the consequences. You didn't. And I have so many devotees with whom I reciprocate. But you have only one. I have devotees in Madhurya Ras, Vatsalya Ras, Sakhya Ras, Dasya Ras, Shanta Ras. I reciprocate with all of them. I reciprocate with the sadhakas in the material world. People like you and me. That's you and me, not Krishna and gopis. I reciprocate with everyone who approaches me, Krishna says. But you love only me, so I cannot equal your love. I admit it. I can never repay my debt to you. He concluded, I am defeated by your love. Well, when the gopis heard that, they were very, not so much happy, but appeased. And then he said, okay, let's start the pastime with the rasa dance. So the dance started all over again. The gopis wanted the Raas Lila dance to go on and 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 on, never ending. So what did Krishna do? By his mystic power, he allowed the Raas Lila to go on for how many years? Anybody knows? How long did the Raas Lila go on?
1,000 years.
1,000
years.
Sorry, can't hear you.
1,000.
1,000 years?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
More than.
More than
Brahma's
that?
full night. Brahma's full night.
Very good. Brahma's full night. How many years is that? That's 4.3 billion Earth years. So that's how long they danced. Now, who can, among us, who can dance for 4.3 hours?
Nobody.
But there they were, dancing for 4.3 billion years together. Because gopis wanted to, for the dance to never end. And he basically turned the time back for everybody else. So next morning, it was just the next morning for everyone else. They didn't know that so much time had passed. This is Krishna's inconceivable potency. He can do anything and everything, including stopping the time for billions of years. And he did that just to give the gopis the enjoyment of dancing with him. That was his reciprocation. Dancing with me to give me pleasure. I want to dance with you to give you pleasure. And all the gopis made a circle or circles, concentric circles. They held each other's hand. They were going around and around and they were dancing. And then once again, Krishna expanded himself and he was dancing between the two gopis. So each gopi again felt that only Krishna was with me. Only Krishna was only looking at me. Krishna was only smiling at me, etc., etc. But this time, there was no feeling of pride that got them in trouble earlier. They were simply happy receiving Krishna's attention. And they were dancing out their hearts. I should say, that's not the expression. Dancing their hearts out is the expression. And they were singing. And guess what they were singing? Anybody knows what they were singing?
Gopi.
Hare Krishna Mahamantra.
Sing it, sing it.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna
sing it,
Krishna,
yaar.
Sing it.
Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Thank you. So that's what they were singing. And the reason I wanted to make sure I mentioned that is that therefore every time and any time we chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Krishna is reminded of the Raas Lila. And the most overwhelming emotion he was feeling at that time was love. And therefore, overflowing with love, Krishna is more than happy to give love for Krishna to us when we chant that name, provided we do it sincerely. Therefore, this is the Mahamantra that chanting sincerely even once gives us the love of Krishna, because Krishna is so willing to give it when he hears this. Okay. So once again, before I conclude, Krishna performed this Raas Lila when he was 8 years old. And the reason he did this at that age was he wanted to show the pure quality of his most intimate reciprocation of his spiritual emotion. And just understand one thing. Just like Krishna played the flute for all the gopis to invite them to come to him, he's playing upon his flute for all of us. He's calling each and every one of us to enter his divine Leela. And we will do well to reciprocate. We must come to Krishna and surrender. And if we do, we will experience the supreme joy of life within our hearts, just like the gopis did. So it's 9:33. I'm sorry, I'm 3 minutes over. I hope you enjoyed listening to this wonderful, sweet pastime of Lord Krishna. I will stop and see if there's any questions. And as I said, if anybody wants to leave, you're more than welcome, because your commitment was to 9:30. But you're welcome to stay if you have any questions.
Prabhuji,
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes, Aditi Mataji, go ahead.
Prabhuji, when the dance lasted for the whole day of Brahma, right?
Night of Brahma.
Night. Okay. So did any changes happen? Like, how we heard in Brahma Vimohan Leela, the Gopas grew little taller, right? So did anything happen during that period or no?
No, the time was frozen.
Okay.
Time was simply frozen for everybody else.
Okay.
It was as if it was just a regular night. So yes, everybody became one night older, but that was about it. Okay. Good question. Anybody else?
No, I don't know if it's related or not, Prabhuji, but you said Brindavan, the mountain was reducing its size.
Govardhan Hill.
Govardhan Hill, sorry. So is there any particular reason for that, Prabhuji?
Yeah, there's a very nice pastime with that. Again, it's a long pastime, but I can tell you very short. Agastya Muni was visiting mountain, I forget his name now, and he met his son, and he said, I perform my austerities in Kashi, which is Varanasi.
Mount Undachal, Prabhu.
Mount Vindhyachal, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you,
Yeah.
Mount Vindhyachal. And he said, I perform my austerities in Varanasi. There's no hill there. It would be really nice to have a hill. So he saw his son, Govardhan, and he really liked it. It's a beautiful hill. He said, can I please take him with me? So the father, Vindhyachal, was very concerned. He couldn't say no, but he did not want to say yes. So he knew his son is very intelligent. So he called him and he said, this is the request I'm getting. What do you say? And the son said, yes, I'll be more than happy to go on only one condition. And Agastya Muni said, what's that? He said, you carry me yourself all the way to Varanasi, but if you put me down anywhere in the middle, then I will not move from there. And Agastya Muni said, no problem. I have the power to do that. So yes, picked him up on his hand and started flying. When we got above Vrindavan, he felt the need, the call of nature. He said, I have to go. And you know what it is? When you have to go, you have to go. So he came down and put the hill on the ground and rushed to do his thing. He came back, tried to lift it, and couldn't lift it, couldn't budge it. So he got very angry and said, what's going on? So Govardhan reminded him of the condition. So Agastya Muni accepted it, but he got so angry, he said, you have tricked me. So I'm going to curse you that you lose your size by 1 mustard seed every year. So that curse is still going on. And that was the story basically that I was referring to.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, thank you. You're welcome. Any other questions, comments?
I have a question.
Yeah, Shilpi, go ahead.
I remember a few times me going to Vrindavan as a child, and they said that those gopis during this Raas Lila time, that every night in that area where those trees represent Krishna and Gopi, that area, I'm not sure what exactly we call
Nidhi
it.
one. It's called Nidhi one.
Exactly. So I remember stories like, they say that every night, I don't know if these are just speculation or I'm just trying to think, what are your thoughts on it? So they say that every night when Krishna do Raas Lila, so they say that nobody goes to Nidhi one during the night time.
Yes.
And is that true, or is it just a speculation?
No, it's not speculation. It is true. There have been some cases of some people hiding themselves behind some trees or bushes.
Yeah.
At night. And in the morning, they have been found either dead or totally crazy, insane.
So are the story true?
Yeah. So that's one story. Second story is that every morning they actually find, there's a bed also in a room there. They find the bed unmade, as somebody has slept there. They find remnants of pan somebody has chewed and some other food stuff. Every morning that happens. So one time there was I forget which TV station. They talked the people there into letting them film from outside and stand guard from outside to see what's going on. So they filmed the bed fully made, properly made, and footsteps on the side. And then early morning, when the gates opened, they were the first ones to go. They filmed it again. Sure enough, the bed was unmade, was unchewed beetle nuts and pan and all those kind of things. I said, look, yeah, so this is a real proof that these things are happening even today. So there's no speculation. It's actually happening every day.
And is it true those trees doesn't grow even taller?
That's true. That's also true, yes.
Very interesting.
And they look like they're bending down in offering the obeisances.
They're all connected. It's like a...
But they're very close to each other, yes.
Yeah, they were.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, you're welcome. Anything else?
Yes, Prabhu, I have a question.
Sure, Krishna Prabhu, go ahead.
Yes, Prabhu, how can we understand that pride enters the purest of the pure devotees like gopis? Is it that pride entered only those gopis who were yogis in Sri Ram pastime, or how can we understand?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So how do we understand that the purest of the devotees also get the feeling of pride? So essentially, Krishna, especially in his pastime as Krishna in Vrindavan, he uses his yoga maya potency to bewilder anybody and everybody. Like we know the story about Brahma, for example. So he's causing that pride to enter. Like imagine Radharani feeling the pride. So this is all Krishna doing that.
Okay.
To be able to do this pastime to show once again to people like us that pride is a very bad thing. Now, even if my purest devotees get that, they suffer. And don't think you will not become proud. So don't be too proud to think they'll get proud.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's his way of teaching us.
Yes. Oh. And then this Maharas, does it happen only one time during those like 5,000 years back during Krishna's Leela in here?
So Raas Lila happened almost every night. But the
Yeah.
Maharas Lila, the first one happened only once.
Only once. Okay.
Otherwise, there was Raas Lila every night.
Yes. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Sure, you're welcome. So he stayed in Vrindavan until the age of 10 years and 8 months, which means 2 years and 8 months they had the Raas Lila every night. And then Krishna left.
2 years and 8 months.
Prabhuji, can you confirm one time when does Maharas Lila happens again?
Tomorrow,
Like
Sharad
how
Purnima.
often you said once or Sharad Purnima?
Sharad Purnima, that's tomorrow.
Actually, the once every year you're saying? Or...
No, we celebrate it once every
Okay,
year.
okay, Maharas Lila.
We celebrate it once every year because that happens only once.
Okay.
Right? Otherwise,
Okay.
Raas Lila happens every day.
But Raas Lila is every night.
Every night.
Every night.
Yeah.
In Vrindavan.
In Vrindavan.
In Vrindavan.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Prabhuji, can you elaborate? I have one question. Can you elaborate a little bit more on, you said before you are promoted to go to Golok Vrindavan, you get a chance to serve you learn how to serve from gopis basically. So can you elaborate and just a little bit on that, please?
Yeah, sure. So basically, only the purest of the devotees can enter Goloka Vrindavan. So if you read Brahma Samhita, it describes that there are 10 Dikpals, which is the Dikpals translated as the predominating deities of every direction. There are 10 directions. So they're guarding this. And they're guarding it with their tridents. So anybody with even the smallest, tiniest amount of impurity tries to enter, they chase them away. So it has to be very pure. But then a pure devotee is not necessarily trained to surrender in the way the gopis have surrendered. Not trained to serve in the way the gopis serve. So they're required to go through an on-the-job training. So they appear wherever there's a pastime of Krishna going on, whichever universe that is. And they take the shelter of one of the gopis or the gopas, depending upon which spiritual body they have. And they get the training. And then they go to Golok Vrindavan.
So can they take any form basically? What kind of forms?
So whatever their original form is. So you know about Swarup Siddhi?
Yeah.
What is our Swarupa? What is our constitutional form? It could be a stone, it could be a tree, it could be a plant, it could be an animal, it could be a bird, it could be a fish, it could be a man, woman, anything. So whatever that is, that's the form we take.
That's the form we take before we go to Golok Vrindavan.
Correct.
Like whoever goes.
Correct.
Okay. Very nice. Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
What is samadhi?
Sorry?
What do you mean? What does samadhi exactly mean?
Samadhi is going in a trance. And depending upon the trance, it's part where you're not even breathing. Maybe your heart is not going either. Depends upon. You're certainly not aware of anything external. There's no external consciousness.
So then they give up their life also in samadhi, Prabhu? Is it like that?
Not necessarily. No, not necessarily. Samadhi can be for a definite period of time. It could be a few minutes, it could be a few hours, could be a few days, could be a few months, could be a few weeks, years, whatever, and then you come back.
So what is the difference between meditation?
That samadhi is different.
Okay.
That samadhi is when you leave your body.
Okay.
That's different.
That's different. Okay.
Prabhuji, do we start a lamp offering from tomorrow or day after tomorrow?
As I was saying, I start on Ekadashi. So if you haven't started it, start tomorrow, yes.
And can we also break the milk fast tomorrow morning?
You can, but I'm not taking my chances. So I'm breaking it on the first.
On the first, okay.
I'm just to make sure.
Fine. Thank you, Prabhuji.
because it doesn't hurt if you don't take it,
Yeah.
but it might hurt if you do. So one more day, I think we can survive. Okay, so this is 9:46, 16 minutes over. I have a question for you, and that is today I didn't get you a chance periodically during the class to ask questions. I wanted to finish the pastime. Now we have 3 more opportunities to do the same thing, and my question to you is, do you prefer I pause from time to time, say every 10, 15 minutes, to have some kind of discussion, question, answers, or do you prefer that, no, not interrupt, just complete the pastime? What's your preference?
No interruption, Prabhu.
Okay, so that's one opinion.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
I'm sorry?
Maybe.
I'm sorry, 2 people spoke at the same time.
No interruption.
No interruption, okay. Anybody else?
Maybe you can ask questions at the end too.
At the
Like
end,
how-
of course. At the end, of course.
Yeah.
What else
Okay,
wondering about?
yeah. No. Yeah, no interruption in the middle of the pastimes.
Okay, all right.
I would prefer question answer in the middle, Prabhu. I don't know if anyone else.
Okay, no, I mean, that's what I'm asking. So, yeah, that's the purpose, yeah. Okay, so I'll find a suitable time, but maybe not too many times for question answers, some appropriate time. And then continue. So the interruption is minimal if there is one.
Usually, I think, however you were doing, Prabhuji, right? You will, you can decide when to stop and ask questions. Like, if there are any questions, then you can try to answer, right?
Sure.
Instead of we interrupting, you can stop in between, logically, and then ask us.
Good point. Good point. Yes, I got it. Thank you, Prabhu. That's a very good point. Yes. Okay. Anything else? All right. Then I want to thank you for kindly joining us.
Thank
Really
you for your
appreciate
time.
it.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Prabhuji.